should be totally terrified as all of their nefarious deeds that we have been telling you about are being exposed. This is the worst abuse of power, corruption scandal in American history. It's all coming out, everything we've been telling you. The president rightly demanding to know just how pervasive the spying was on his campaign and who in the Obama administration was involved. Rod Rosenstein, he's responding. He's telling the DOJ Inspector General he can investigate. This is only providing cover for his deep state friends and trying to delay what will be inevitable. Bad idea. I'll tell you why. Also, the media and even Hillary Clinton's former top campaign aide for decades, Mark Penn, are now starting to admit what a huge abuse of power scandal this is. And also tonight, we have all these deep state actors, John Brennan, James Clapper, Sally Yates, all melting down over these spy revelations. So in desperation, you're now predictably lashing out at President Trump. It's not going to work. And also tonight, a bombshell report from our own Sarah Carter. The FISA memos that the DOJ is refusing to hand over could very well hold the key to the Obama FBI Trump surveillance. Now, we've got a lot to go. Stay with us for the hour. This is an important breaking news opening monologue. All right, brand new tonight, after a meeting between Trump, the FBI Director Chris Wray, Rod Rosenstein, and other top intel officials, the White House is saying President Trump and the Department of Justice are now asking the Inspector General to investigate the Obama administration and the spying they did on the Trump campaign. And the White House is also revealing tonight that Chief of Staff General Kelly is setting up a meeting for Congress so they will see the documents that constitutionally they have been asking for and the DOJ has been obstructing and stonewalling. Really, I'll believe it when I see those documents. Now, this is the same material that Rod Rosenstein has refused to turn over for months. Now, his name, by the way, you want to keep an eye on. I'll have more on Rosenstein in a minute. Now, first, what's unfolding about the deep state is so dramatic, so shocking, but at the same time, so very predictable, given everything we have now been uncovering for over 18 months. Now, we are now seeing the cracks in the deep state, in this dam. It's about to burst, and all of this information is now beginning to cascade out. Even the New York Times, the Washington Post are now confirming, just in the last week, everything we have been uncovering, again, for 18 months. It is the biggest abuse of power corruption scandal. It makes Watergate look like a parking ticket. Now, the House Intel Committee Chair, Devin Nunes, he's reacting by saying this is crossing a serious red line. Very important.
If they ran a spy ring or an informant ring and they were paying people within the Trump campaign, if any of that is true, that is an absolute red line. There is not an honest person in this country that thinks it's okay if sources, informants, whatever you want to call them, go around and start passing out money all over the globe to do what? To secretly put yourself into a presidential campaign. That's not acceptable in this country.
That's not acceptable in the United States of America. Chairman Nunes is also saying there might be more than one FBI informant. You've got to be kidding me. Watch this.
Nobody was ever interested in an informant. We asked for specific documents that we still have not received from the Department of Justice. So they continue to leak out things about this informant. And we don't know if there's one informant or more informants because there's so much out there now. It's really getting tough to follow. And all we're asking for is give us the documentation that you used to start this investigation.
Hand it over. These type of tactics, spying on an opposition party in an election year. Are you kidding me? This is what you'd see in the former Soviet Union, Venezuela, not the United States of America. Just look at this quote from the Wall Street Journal editorial board. Listen to this. We cannot recall a similar case, even in the J. Edgar Hoover days, when the FBI decided it needed to snoop on a presidential campaign. Now, this is the same J. Edgar Hoover who was notorious for having files on just about everyone in Washington. That is how serious all of this is. Even Clinton aide and advisor Mark Penn, he's worked with the Clintons for 20 years, is calling out this scandal for what it is. This is a game-changing moment, and Penn has worked for the Clintons forever and served as Hillary's chief strategist for her campaign in 2008. He is now calling this witch hunt for what it is and literally writing an op-ed in The Hill stopping Robert Mueller to protect us all. Stunning headline. Penn goes on to explain how the facts are now undeniable. Mueller is on a crusade to get the president of the United States to overturn a duly elected president. He uses the term deep state, that it's real, that the FBI rigged the Clinton investigation and then targeted Donald Trump and his campaign when he was president-elect and now president. And Penn explained more on this on the story with Martha McCallum earlier tonight. Take a look.
I think that the Inspector General's report is coming out. I think Nunes is finding out, like, what are the origins of the investigation. And there doesn't seem to be a real concrete intelligence origin for this investigation. And without a foundation, one wonders, what did we spend an entire year on? What did we disrupt everyone who was in the campaign, everyone who was in the administration?
And also, former Solicitor General for the U.S., Ted Olson, he's out with a new piece where he explains how Robert Mueller's witch hunt could be setting up a massive constitutional crisis. And, of course, investigative reporter Cheryl Atkinson, she has a defining piece on all of this, literally called The Collusion Against Trump, an entire timeline. She breaks down every single key moment in this entire massive abuse of power scandal. We will refer to this throughout history, because it's been going on for 18 months. Now the mainstream media, even they, finally are starting to catch on and admit that what we've been reporting and what others on the show have been reporting and other people, what we've been covering, we're now being proven right. They have to admit it. Look at this headline from the Washington Post over the weekend. Secret FBI source for Russia investigation met with 3 Trump advisors during the campaign. Here's a USA Today report. Look at this cover. It says, and even, by the way, even fake news liberal CNN, they can't ignore all the facts, all the evidence. Okay, it's taken them well over a year, but finally the media is starting to realize that they have missed the single biggest story in their lifetime as they pursued Russia, Stormy. Now, it's a massive abuse of power. We first reported on this March 7th, 2017, about FISA surveillance of the Trump campaign. Now, President Trump, he has every single right tonight to be outraged about what has happened. He has every right to want to know the truth. You, the American people, need to know the truth. We need to expose all of this criminal behavior. All of these deep state actors need to be exposed, and all of them held accountable. The Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, okay, he's quick to respond to President Trump, demanding the Department of Justice get to the bottom of it all. So Rosenstein is trying to make himself out to be a hero, but it's a total farce. Here's why. Rosenstein is doing what he always does, and that is protecting all of his deep state friends. Now, the Deputy Attorney General, he knows that by referring this to the Inspector General, it will buy them a year to 18 months and protect all these deep state actors. Now, it's going to take Michael Horowitz well over a year. We don't have over a year to uncover this. We need a full FBI, DOJ, rank and file, field office investigation into all of this, because what they're trying to do is slowly leak out this information, a slow bleed to cover themselves. It's all a CYA. And remember, they know what's out there. They know they're about to get caught. This is all about controlling the narrative, spinning the narrative, trying to protect themselves. And they probably learned a thing or two from Hillary about acid washing hard drives. We've got to be careful. Now, there's another major component to all of this. Rosenstein knows that the Inspector General, he doesn't have any real prosecutorial power. Horowitz can't convene a grand jury. He cannot indict people. He can only give criminal referrals, like in the case of Andrew McCabe. And on top of all of that, as we're seeing with this IG report on the Clinton email investigation, the FBI, the DOJ, both get to review and try and refute facts and redact information, again, probably falsely in the name of national security. We have been saying Congress needs to see these documents. We have checks and balances, separation of powers, co-equal branches of government, and you know what? They are purposefully obstructing, and it looks like some of this might start to happen. All right, Sarah Carter, she'll join us in a few minutes, breaking another explosive story tonight. Here's the headline. Concealed FISA documents may hold the key to Trump's surveillance. Now, what Sarah's reporting, a number of very key details, that Rod Rosenstein, he signed the final FISA warrant, you know, using the fake phony dossiers, the bulk of information. Why? To spy on Trump campaign associate Carter Page, using the unverified, never corroborated, Clinton bought and paid for, foreign national put together dossier of Russian lies. Now, Sarah's also reporting that back in April, the FBI refused to turn over documents that Chairman Nunes and others have been asking for. You know, phony claims of national security risks. And as we have seen, it's one excuse to stonewall after another, all to prevent Congress from knowing the truth and fulfilling their constitutional role. And Chairman Nunes, well, he's now putting his foot down. And in this standoff with Rosenstein and the DOJ. Good for Devin Nunes. Take a look.
We had what I thought was a productive meeting. And then after that meeting, they've done nothing but leak and leak and leak. Now, we don't know exactly who it is over at the Department of Justice or FBI. I'm not pinning any blame on people, but we're not going to go to another meeting where we don't get documents and then the meeting leaks out.
Now, the chairman is getting close. The entire truth is now starting to come out, thankfully. And by the way, despite Rosenstein's stonewalling. And now, because of all of these new developments, you have deep state actors, former, communist voting, John Brennan. How he ever became CIA director is beyond any comprehension I have. We know known liar James Clapper, Sally Yates. We know her political agenda. They're all losing their minds because all of them are about to be exposed. Brennan lashing out at President Trump, tweeting, Senator McConnell, Speaker Ryan, if Mr. Trump continues along this disastrous path, you will bear major responsibility for the harm to our democracy. By the way, we're a republic. You do a great disservice to the nation and Republican Party if you continue to enable Mr. Trump's self-serving actions. Now, Brennan is up to his eyeballs in all of this. I am certain that's going to be exposed. And as we have been saying on this program, he's been lying about his involvement with this Clinton bought and paid for dossier for months, and he lied in front of Congress. And as for James Clapper, he's ensnared in the dossier scandal also. And Clapper, what is his response? Just like Yates, just like Brennan, let's go after the president and attack him.
I think that's actually a very disturbing assault on the independence of the Department of Justice. And I think when the president, this president or any president, tries to use the Department of Justice as kind of a private investigatory body, that's not good for the country. The big thing here is this is not about spying on his campaign. It's about what the Russians are doing. Were they attempting to infiltrate the campaign? And that was the concern. And that was, in my belief, is what the focus of this whole activity was about.
The same Clapper bragged about the FBI spying on the Trump campaign and said it was a good thing? This is problematic. And then there's good old Sally Yates, who signed off on, yes, one of the FISA warrants like Rosenstein, and was emailing with Andrew Weissman, the most corrupt member of Mueller's team, after she refused to enforce the travel ban. Yates is also trashing the president. Why? To save and protect herself. Watch this.
Donald Trump himself accusing the Obama administration of improperly targeting his campaign for an investigation. What's your response to everything you've heard over the weekend?
Well, obviously, I'm not going to comment on the specific facts there. It's really up to the Department of Justice to decide what information should be made public with respect to that. But, you know, I think what we're seeing here is the president has just taken his all-out assault on the rule of law to a new level. Mm-hmm. And this time, he is ordering up an investigation of the investigators who are examining his own campaign. You know, that's really shocking.
Another hard-hitting interview by Liberal Joe. Now, all three of these deep state players are scared out of their minds. They're directly implicated in all of this. So it's time to ask, what did they all know? When did they all know it? And just like I've been saying about their deep state friend, James Comey, who, by the way, James, I warned you, you had the right to remain silent. You didn't listen. Anyway, instead of running their mouths, well, they might want to now begin to lawyer up, and many of them are. Yeah, James Comey hired 3 lawyers. The 3 people he leaked documents to. Great attorney-client privilege for everybody but me. Anyway, another big development to tell you about tonight. The soon-to-be-released DOJ IG report on the Clinton email server investigation is expected to slam FBI leaders just like Comey, Andrew McCabe, for taking weeks to review emails that were found on Huma Abedin's shared computer with Anthony Weiner. And the IG report is supposed to come out very soon. And if the Inspector General Horowitz does his job and his 500 employees, Comey and McCabe should be very worried tonight. All right, a lot of ground to cover. Joining us now, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Joe DeGeneva. I said to you last time, Joe, when you were on this program, I cringe. My mom was a prison guard. My dad worked in family court probation. And I have so many extended family members in the NYPD and the FBI. And you say bad cops. I know the 99% are not, that they're good people for this country. But we know tonight you have been right, and what we've been reporting, Sarah included, she has been right.
Well, I think the sad thing about this is you watch someone like Sally Yates, who was the Deputy Attorney General under Obama and acting Attorney General for a while, complain about the rule of law and the violation of it when she and Brennan and Comey and others destroyed the rule of law in the Obama administration. They traduced it. They besmirched it. They were so politically motivated that they have now destroyed the Department of Justice and the FBI. It is going to take a decade to rebuild the public trust in the FBI and the Department of Justice because Sally Yates, who just joined a fancy law firm in Atlanta, is going to need to lawyer up. The disgraceful performance of her and, of course, even more disgraceful, John Brennan, who led a conspiracy against the campaign of the opposing party's presidential nominee, and then when he won, did everything they could to frame him and his compatriots with false crimes. It is the greatest political scandal in American history, and shame on Sally Yates and shame on John Brennan.
Wow, it's such a powerful commentary, and sadly, it's all true. Sarah Carter, March 7th, 2017, you and John Solomon, right here on this show, broke the news about the Trump campaign being surveilled. You are now saying that concealed FISA documents, the warrants, the original application, the bulk of information, as the Nunes and Grassley-Graham memo said, came from that phony dossier that Hillary paid for, and they lied to FISA judges. How were those documents, and I hear there are other documents that if they're ever released, will expose all of it, which is why the IG report, to me, is a bad idea, or going the IG route is a bad idea.
I think going with the IG is fine, as long as the documents are turned over, and that's what's important here. Now, these documents are associated with those FISA applications. Remember, there were 4 FISA applications starting in October 21st, 2016, and then it rolled all the way to September 2017. That's 7 months into President Trump's administration. And these were all on Carter Page, but they also brought in a dragnet of everybody that Carter Page spoke to and possibly people that those people spoke to. Now, there was evidence attached to these FISA applications. Remember, it's not just the dossier. There was other extenuating evidence that was attached. These are probably part of the documents that they're requesting. Remember, this was a classified letter that Nunes sent, so no one's seen it. What's important now, Sean, is that they get those documents because the House Intelligence Committee and the Senate Judiciary
Committee
are
something called
far
bleach
ahead.
pit that nobody in America knew about except for Hillary Clinton.
That's right, but these are held on servers that are highly guarded and protected at the FBI, and I don't believe they. I know. I don't believe. I'm not 100% positive that this could be destroyed. What I know they need to do is show those documents without redactions, and they need to have people in there that understand what's going on. They need to have people inside that can actually read the documents, not just congressional leaders. I know that John Kelly is going to be setting up that meeting, but I hope that the president got confirmation from both Rod Rosenstein and Christopher Wray that they will be delivering those documents, and I hope that the appropriate investigators with the right clearance are able to get into this meeting and examine those documents.
I hope the president's demanding it because he has the power to demand it and the power to see it unredacted and the power also to declassify if need be. Joe, so much. By the way, I told Sarah last week, Sarah, am I going to recognize the initials of the informant? Yeah, we all recognize them. I thought I was being clever. But now we're discovering two separate reports that he got paid in a two-year period of time between $400,000 and maybe $1 million, maybe as high as $1 million. We also learned that from Devin Nunes, we might have a second spy on a presidential candidate. I read the Wall Street Journal, but now you've got people like Ted Olson, who everybody respects, former Solicitor General Mark Penn. Cheryl Atkinson's timeline is devastating to the entire story, the entire narrative. Your reaction to all of this?
Well, here's the thing. Inspector generals are good in certain circumstances. Here's the problem with Mr. Horowitz. He cannot interview any of the people who have left the Department of Justice or FBI. He has no subpoena authority. So all of the people who were part of the plot and were in DOJ and the FBI are gone. He can't talk to them. All he can do is review documents and talk to whoever's left to do that. What we need is a federal grand jury with a prosecutor. Doesn't have to be a special counsel. And by the way, let's remember why we're here. We're here because Rod Rosenstein, a political coward, someone who was inadvertently made Deputy Attorney General, appointed Robert Mueller illegally with no evidence that any crime had been committed. And here we are, more than a year later, with nothing having been determined except that there was no Russian collusion. All of these people having been put through hell because Rod Rosenstein couldn't do what he should have done,
and he's
which is had it conducted. Not only is he conflicted because he was a witness and he signed some of the warrants, guess what? Suppose there was activity, which I believe there was, that went beyond the law. Rod Rosenstein is not only a witness, he would be a co-conspirator. I mean, this is ludicrous. When you think that the President of the United States has to demand an investigation into something that is so obviously criminal, and now the Chief of Staff, General Kelly, is telling Rod Rosenstein, show them the documents.
Is Joe right about Rod Rosenstein? We don't have but 35 seconds, Sarah.
I believe Joe is right about Rod Rosenstein. I mean, he has been stonewalling Congress. He has been stonewalling everyone on the release of documents over and over again. And this time, I believe that Nunes and the rest of them mean it. If they take this next meeting, he better bring those documents. He better bring them so that they can see them and so that the right people can have access.
If he brings them, he's signing his own demise.
Well, he signed that last FISA warrant.
That's right. I want to see it. You're right. You guys have been amazing. Thank you for your hard work. When we come back, Ed Henry, more details of the president's meeting with Rosenstein and Wray and Newt Gingrich and much more straight ahead. All right, joining us now live from the White House, more details of the president's high-stakes meeting with the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, the FBI Director, Fox News Chief National Correspondent, Ed Henry. Ed, I won't believe the documents are coming until they're sent.
Sean, there's a lot of skepticism about that tonight, especially when you have people like Sally Yates, remember, ousted from the Justice Department last year, saying today that she believes the president is launching an all-out assault on democracy by pressuring the Justice Department to put these documents out there, but also investigate what happened with this confidential informant. But I can tell you, Republicans like Devin Nunes are pushing back tonight, saying that Sally Yates and other Obama officials are just trying to divert attention from the real story, that in the words of Nunes, a bright red line was crossed when the FBI allegedly infiltrated the Trump campaign and allegedly spied on it. That meeting you mentioned, the president with Rod Rosenstein, Christopher Wray, the FBI director, they basically the president was demanding a new investigation to find out just how this Russia probe started. The president, it appears, got some concrete action. Press Secretary Sarah Sanders telling us, quote, based on the meeting with the president, the Department of Justice has now asked the Inspector General to expand its current investigation to include any irregularities with the FBI's or the Department of Justice's tactics concerning the Trump campaign. It was also agreed that White House Chief of Staff John Kelly will immediately set up a meeting with the FBI, DOJ, and the Director of National Intelligence with congressional leaders to review highly classified and other information they've requested. Now, that means John Kelly will be working with Nunes and others to get the documents that Nunes has been demanding for weeks now about this confidential informant. Nunes saying there needs to be transparency as Democrats like Adam Schiff object.
This is a dramatic and new and destructive low, I think, for the Congress of the United States, basically to ignore the warnings of the FBI and Justice Department and potentially risk people's lives. What they would like this information for is clearly to be of service to the Trump defense team and further any narrative they have.
We don't know if there's one informant or more informants because there's so much out there now. It's really getting tough to follow. And all we're asking for is give us the documentation that you used to start this investigation.
Now, Fox News also learning tonight that this long-awaited Justice Department Inspector General report looking at the FBI and the Justice Department's handling of the Hillary Clinton email investigation has found, among other things, that James Comey and Andy McCabe, his former number 2 at the FBI, of course, who was also ousted, acted improperly by not moving quickly enough on those emails that appeared in September of 2016. They didn't act on them, look into them. The new Clinton emails found on Anthony Weiner's laptop, of course, until October 2016. That and a whole bunch of other things now under scrutiny, which shows, Sean, that it's not just the handling of the Trump investigation, but the handling of the Clinton investigation by the DOJ and the FBI still very much under investigation right now, Sean.
Deep state's being exposed. Mueller's witch hunt is crashing in. These are fascinating times. Great report. Ed Henry at the White House. Joining us now, Wall Street Journal's Kimberly Strassel. She was the first journalist to expose this huge scandal nearly 2 weeks ago that, in fact, the FBI used an informant to spy on the Trump campaign. She joins us, as well as Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz. You know, I love the Wall Street Journal in their comments today, in their editorial. Kimberly, I thought it was devastating. And also the calls on the Obama administration. They're calling on Obama. What did he know? When did he know it? And now Nunes saying, Kimberly, there might be a second spy?
Yeah, this is really important. First of all, for people to remember that the Department of Justice, which is now out there hinting, and various partisans like Adam Schiff, that somehow Congressman Nunes and others are responsible for blowing this source. The Department of Justice leaked all of these details to friendly news media sources, everything short of this guy's name and his social security number.
Bingo.
And just so that they could get ahead of this and spin it the way they wanted to, because they knew the noose was tightening and they'd probably be forced to put out these documents. And this is the other important part, too, is what none of us have really had enough information on yet is we know a lot about what the FBI did, although still not enough. What we don't know, though, is what the political side of this operation knew. We know Clinton's campaign had this dossier, too. Who else had it in the Obama administration? And what other agencies were involved in efforts to go after the Trump campaign prior to the FBI's claim of its official start of its investigation?
I'll say it, so I don't want to bring former Congressman Chaffetz. Schiff is the biggest liar and propagandist on television today, almost as bad as fake news CNN and conspiracy TV, MSNBC. Bigger points here. The FBI paid this guy. We've all known his name for a long time. This is not, they've leaked it. They're the ones that did it. But paying this guy money and maybe a second spy, and I don't believe they're going to hand over the documents if they can get away with it. Congressman Chaffetz, you requested some of this very same information well over a year ago, and it's never been forthcoming.
Yeah, well, there was a subpoena we issued in 2016 for all the documents that we wanted to see. The Inspector General can get these documents if he hasn't already. I hope he's already gathered them up. I think the deep state is understanding that the truth is going to surface, and that's why they're leaking this information to friendly news sources to put their own spin on it. I think Kim Strassel has done some of the best reporting on that. But I got to tell you, you have an attorney general in Jeff Sessions who's there in name only. He's worthless. And you have Rod Rosenstein, who's there with an oxygen mask. He's totally conflicted. And I'm excited what some members in the House are going to do tomorrow. I think there's a group of 5 members that are going to actually put forward a resolution to say we need a second special
has
counsel.
a vicious temper and right now is on edge every day screaming at people. Have you heard that, Congressman?
It isn't pretty over there. I mean, it's amazing. If you look at what Rod Rosenstein is arguing, and then you look at the Democrats like Adam Schiff, this political hack that is just desperate not to have truth come out. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't want to have truth come out. He doesn't want to expose what's going on there. Devin Nunes is part of the Gang of 8. He can look at all that information.
And I agree with Devin. I agree with Congressman Chaffetz. You have done a great job, Kimberly. Last word.
Oh, look, the other thing, this has got to be declassified. Congress needs to see it first, but then every one of us needs to see it too.
The president can do that, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, and
President
I
can
think
do
that
it.
needs
And
to
the
be the next
president can
step.
demand they turn them over now, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
The president, he's the president of the United States,
That's
the
correct.
only constitutionally elected person, and he can declassify it.
Now. I would say to the president, do it now. Do not
Yep.
wait 18 months for the IG to investigate with 500 people, and then we'll find out later. They'll do everything they can to spin it, lie, delete. Thank you all. When we come back, former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich weighs in on tonight's big breaking news. Stay with us. Here with reaction to tonight's big breaking news, author of the upcoming book. It's going to be out June 5th and available for pre-order now on barnesandnoble.com, Hannity.com. It's called Trump's America, The Truth About Our Nation's Great Comeback. Former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. I want to talk about your book, but not now. This, sorry, I love you. You're family to me. But when you look at this, and Ted Olson, and Mark Penn, and Cheryl Atkinson, and now even the New York Times and Washington Post, well, trying to get ahead of what they failed to do for a year and a half. And the deep state is real, and the effort to undermine the president is real. FISA abuse is real. Spies in the Trump campaign are real. You're the great historian. Tell me where in history this will stack up to.
Well, I think it's rapidly becoming the biggest and the most sobering political scandal in American history. Somebody pointed out earlier, back when J. Edgar Hoover was spying at Lyndon Johnson's behest on Richard Nixon, we thought it was terrible. Back when they had a break-in at the Watergate, we thought it was terrible. This is a multi-year effort that has two different fronts, and people need to always remember that. One front was protecting, propping up, covering up for Bill and Hillary Clinton. The other front, as Trump became more and more serious, the other front was to stop Trump at any cost. Now, I believe that the reason you see people like Sally Yates go berserk, you see John Brennan go berserk, you see General Clapper go berserk, they're all guilty. When you see somebody in the Obama team who gets that rattled and is that angry, what you know is they're scared to death that they're going to get drawn into all this, and their role is going to come out, and it will involve, I think, felonies. And frankly, I suspect it reaches to President Obama. It's inconceivable that President Obama could have had this many things going on and not known it, because his administration was very controlling and very tight. And I think we're going to discover all this stuff in the end ends up at the Obama White House and has the president and his senior staff's fingerprints all over it.
The question remains, what did he know? What did Kerry know? What did Susan Rice and Ben Rhodes know?
Sure.
What did Clapper and Brennan know? We haven't even talked about unmasking, but you're right. Hillary gets a rigged investigation, and then comes the effort to undermine a president or candidate, then a president-elect, and then a president in the United States. And you put spies and you lie to court, you lie to FISA judges?
I think the number one thing the average everyday American can take from all this is that the corruption was so deep at the top. And again, remember, we're not talking about the everyday FBI agent doing their job. We're talking about people at the very top. And those people were so corrupt and so arrogant that they thought they could get away with anything. And so they just proceeded down the road, protecting Hillary, covering up Hillary, giving immunity to people who are breaking the law, and then going after Trump and going after Trump supporters. When all of this comes out as one in a way that's easy to understand, which may take, frankly, another year or a year and a half, because there's so much of it. And every time we turn around, as you know, another piece unravels. And you've had more big stories in the last year and a half than I would have thought possible. And again, you've been right. And inch by inch, even the New York Times is having to concede. And I think, by the way, Mark Penn's column today is a real breakthrough.
Agreed.
Because here you have a genuine, unqualified member of the left saying, this is a threat to all of us, and we have got to get rid of Mueller because he literally threatens every American's freedom.
Mr. Speaker, you understand the Constitution. You understand checks and balances, separation of powers, constitutional authority, oversight of Congress. How dare Rod Rosenstein, who already is conflicted in this by recommending the firing of Comey and signing one of the FISA warrants, how dare they not turn this over to Congress? But that's what they have done. What should Congress do? You were a former speaker.
Well, I mean, first of all, I think it's beginning to move in the right direction. I think the president's beginning to weigh in to reinforce the Republicans in Congress. I think, General Kelly being given this assignment is a very tough, very serious man. And I think he is going to impose on the Justice Department doing their job of turning over legitimate, appropriate information to the legislative branch. But everybody ought to remember, you mentioned the Constitution. Remember that when they were done writing it, Benjamin Franklin was asked by a woman, what have we got? And he said, we have a republic if we can keep it. This is one of those great tests in American history. Corruption came close to destroying the liberties you and I believe in.
And if Hillary got elected, none of this would have come out. Scary. Mr. Speaker, we appreciate your perspective, as always. And I promise I will be promoting your book. I know it's going to be great. I haven't seen it yet. All right, when we come back, all right, former Obama CIA director, communist supporter, John Brennan's recent comments about President Trump have been completely unhinged. Michelle Malkin, Danielle Hoffman, they weigh in next on this big news night. Stay with us. The president's taking aim at former CIA Director John Brennan on Twitter. Now, this after Brennan has attacked the president with outrageous accusations, totally political. Take a look.
I think he's afraid of the president of Russia.
Why?
Well, I think one can speculate as to why, that the Russians may have something on him personally. But the fact that he has had this fawning attitude toward Mr. Putin has not said anything negative about him. I think continues to say to me that he does have something to fear.
I think Mr. Putin is very clever in terms of playing to Mr. Trump's interest in being flattered. And also, I think Mr. Trump is, for whatever reason, either intimidated by Mr. Putin, afraid of what he could do or what might come out.
Here with reaction, she is the host of CRTV, her own show, of course, Michelle Malkin. And by the way, it's award-winning. And retired CIA senior intelligence officer, Fox News contributor Danielle Hoffman. Because this is about Brennan, I know more people that worked in your line of work that think he is the absolute worst director we've ever had. And this display of politics and his whatever involvement people we now see coming, his lying under oath like Clapper, people have had it that I know, FBI intelligence and of course, law enforcement.
I mean, his tweets today read like a partisan politician, not a nonpartisan, retired former director of CIA. And I would just highlight the contrast between Brennan's tweets and his unfounded allegations about the president's speculation that Vladimir Putin could blackmail President Trump. Contrast that with President Trump today at CIA headquarters, presiding over the swearing-in ceremony of Gina Haspel. He called CIA officers the most elite intelligence professionals on the planet.
She's a hero. To me, I thank God she got, just like Mike Pompeo. Thank God they did what they did. We never would have gotten bin Laden. Let me turn to you, Michelle Malkin, from your perspective. You see this abuse of power. You see this deep state corruption. And you're wondering, I'm sure as I am, how could this happen in this country? But it did, and it's now unraveling.
It did, and that is why people like John Brennan are behaving the way they are behaving, completely unhinged, as you say. I think that John Brennan is a bilious blabbermouth, bilious, full of bile, contempt, and spite, not just for our president, but for our country and for the American people who duly elected
I want to know what he knew and when. I want to know what his involvement is.
And I think it's going to come out, and I think that's why he panicked over the weekend. And I think that there is a small difference between being a spook, a partisan spook for Obama, and being a crook, and that he is definitely I think, cringing in the spotlight. I think that Daniel Huffman was right, too, when he observed that the kind of comments that he has made publicly about President Trump aren't just something that harm the White House, but harm all of the good people within the CIA who are trying to do their jobs as this man is self-aggrandizing.
So
and
true.
you see the psychological projection here of John Brennan using words like self-adoring and self-serving to describe our president when he's describing himself. I mean, if this guy had done his job during the Obama administration, we wouldn't have had all of the bungles that John Brennan was entangled in. Everything from helping design the lies about the Benghazi video, bungling the investigation of the the Fast and Furious, the Christmas the underwear bomber, and then even going so far as to downplaying recidivism of the Gitmo terrorists and being soft on jihad. The fact is that these guys have been so invested in their ideological agenda and their partisanship that they were not doing their job in protecting Americans around the world and at home.
I mean this with all my heart. I've been and Michelle has too, the biggest defender of law enforcement my entire career. I want to remind people, this is not rank and file intelligence, CIA, FBI. This is not, in any way, shape, manner, or form. It's the upper echelon and DOJ.
Hey, John Brennan is doing Vladimir Putin's bidding. And for someone who has criticized the Trump administration for the way they've handled Russia, even though the Trump administration has closed down Russian consulates in Seattle and San Francisco and kicked out 60 Russian officials, I mean, John Brennan is doing what Vladimir Putin wants by speculating about the president being subjected to blackmail, even though it's not true. And Brennan walked it back with the New York Times days after he said it. But the damage is done.
Damage is done. Last 15 seconds, Michelle.
You know, the biggest threat we face right now is the three-headed hydra of the police state, the deep state, and the fourth estate. All the incestuous relationships, the leaks, and the self-profiteering by people like John Brennan and his ilk.
All right, thank you both. Thank you so much. When we come back, Hillary Clinton unbelievably embarrassed herself. We'll show you next. All right, Hillary, she can't seem to move on from her election loss in 2016. This past weekend, commencement speech at Yale University. These poor kids have already been indoctrinated. Clinton just really embarrassed herself yet again. It's cringeworthy.
I see, looking out at you, that you are following the tradition of over-the-top hats. So I brought a hat, too. A Russian hat. Right? Look, I mean, if you can't beat them, join them.
Hillary, you're still the loser. And number two, Hillary, you paid for Russian government lies. Christopher Steele funneled money, Fusion GPS, and they turned out to be false. Even in the interrogatories, Steele said, oh, only 50-50, it's for all. All right, let not your heart be troubled. There she, why did you get off Friday night? What was that all about? Why are you